right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am C.W. Mayberry. This is Bible 101 from Torah Observant Apostolics. And we're going to continue on. This should be lesson number 6, beginning in Genesis chapter 9, reading from the King James Version of the Bible. And God blessed Noah and his son. So this is the conclusion of the flood, the recession of the waters of the flood, and the exit into a renewed world, the cursed world, the world rife with sin, done away with, and in a new beginning. All right. Chapter 9, verse 1. And God blessed Noah and his sons, and said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth. The same thing that was said to Adam and Eve in the garden. That is God's will for the expansion of life. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and every fowl of the air, and upon all that move upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. That dread was not there before. There's now an understanding, there's a change in the world of the spirit. And though animals don't have souls, they do have spirits, and they can feel, they can be influenced by people and their spirits. They take on human characteristics because of exposures to human beings over time. And now there's an understanding that this creature has caused a great deal of trouble, even the all completely wiping out entire species except for those that were on the ark. All right, so there's a change in the atmosphere spiritually. Verse 3, Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you, even as the green herb have I given you all things. And in that one verse is contained a library of information. Mankind's diet now changes. Mankind now becomes a meat eater, probably because of the changes in the physical environment. And, let's leave that at that. But the flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. So there's a restriction there. Any animal that you kill to eat has got to be bled. The blood's got to be drained out of it, all right? And surely your blood of your lives will I require it at the hand of every beast. I will require it, and at the hand of man. And at the hand of every man's brother will I require the life of man. Now, why did he say that before Cain and Abel? Why was that never spoken? Maybe it was. It's just not recorded. But there's a change in the environment. There's a change in the understanding of what man is. There's a change in the spiritual environment, the social environment. Everything has changed because of this. And more law, more and more guidance, more and more instruction has to be given to counterbalance the corruption that is in both, that starts in the spirit in man and winds up manifesting itself in his actions. All right? Verse 6. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man. So that's capital punishment universally. No excuse. Intentional homicide is met with capital punishment. And you, be ye fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly upon the earth, and multiply therein. And God spake unto Noah and his sons with them, saying, And behold, I will establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you. God is a God of covenant. Even from the beginning with Adam, when there was no sin, there was covenant. Very simple covenant. Don't eat that tree. Don't eat of that tree and live. And it's gotten more and more complex as we've gone along because of our violations of it. But God is still a God of covenant. You cannot willy-nilly do what you want to do, pick and choose how you want to live, pick and choose how you approach God. There's a prescribed manner to do these things. And you, my friend, are going to have to be aware of it for yourself. No priest, no prophet, no rabbi, no guru, no shaman. Okay? You, and you alone. And God spoke unto Noah and his sons, saying with him, saying, Behold, I will establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, verse 10, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl sorry. This is raw and uncut. This is the real deal. No polish, no editing. And with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl and of the cattle and of every beast of the earth with you, and from all that go out of the ark, that every beast to every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by waters of a flood. It didn't say they wouldn't be cut off anymore, just not by a flood. Neither shall there be any more a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass when I bring a cloud over the earth that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. Now, today we see that all the time. We think nothing of it. At this point in time, there had never been rain. This is the first time they've seen this thing, this phenomenon of a rainbow because of the moisture in the atmosphere. It tells you again, the atmosphere has changed. The planetary atmosphere has changed from what it is. There's been a great introduction of water into the system. And I'm not going to get into why that matters right now, but it matters. It is of great consequence, and especially the way it changed things. All right. Verse 15, and I will remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and the water shall no more become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the bow shall be in the cloud, and it shall look upon it, and I shall look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh is upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, this is a token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth. All right. And the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Ham is the father of Canaan. Canaan is going to be the grandson, obviously, of Noah. He is the father of the people referred to as the Canaanites. They became some of the most perverted people, sexually, religiously, spiritually, to ever walk the face of the earth. So sin still made it through the flood, on the ark, in the seed of man. It's there, and it will be until we get to the end. All right. And you'll see why I brought that out in just a second. 18 again, and the sons of Noah that went forth of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Ham is the father of Canaan. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. So every modern nation upon the face of the earth is descended from these three men. And Noah began to be an husbandman and planted a vineyard, all right? And he drank of the wine and was drunk and was uncovered within his tent. He got drunk and he's naked. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. Now, it does not tell you how he came to know this. It does not tell you what or if anything had happened before that. And this language gets a little bit confused, so watch it. 23, and Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both of their shoulders and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him, and he said, Cursed be Canaan. Now, it's not clear from this text, because Canaan is being counted as his father according to the language of the book. All right. What has happened is this grandson of Noah has found him drunk and has executed perversion upon him. That's what that is about. Okay. And the father actually takes responsibility for it, but the curse is pronounced upon the grandson. And these people become exactly that kind of individual. They become exactly that kind of nation. They become that kind of vehicle for the demonic. That's what they are. That's what they have been. They would later on be responsible for the birth of who knows how many innocent babies offered up to a god they called Molech. They have found jar after jar after jar after jar, clay vessels full of the bones of animals and infant children that were offered up in sacrifice. And that kind of spirit is still in the world today. That's why you bring these things out. That's why you avoid sexual perversion. No matter, we look at one thing and we say, well, that's not so bad, but that over there, that's terrible. Well, one thing leads to the other. It's a progression. It's always a digression. It goes down. It gets worse. What you allow today, your sons and your grandsons will take even further, all right, because you normalized it. 25. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, the servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in his tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years, and all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. So 2,500 years in from the day of Adam, you're still having pretty long lifespans. But you see that begin to decline at this point because of the onset of genetic damage because of sin and environmental damage due to the sin indirectly, but through the flood. Now these are the generations, this is chapter 10, verse 1. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were the sons born after the flood, so that it could continue to procreate. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Midian, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Tyrus, and the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and I'm going to try with these names, but they are not native, and Riphath, even after all these years, and Togarmah, and the sons of Javan, Elisha, and Tarshish, and Kittim, and Tunin, and these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, and their nations. Now they're jumping ahead in time here because there has been no division of tongues as of yet. It will be going down the line. So you've got an encapsulation of time there. Verse 5, but by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families, and after their nations. And the son of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. So that's the whole Middle Eastern, Israel, Egypt, Assyria area. And the sons of Cush, Sheba, and Havilah, and Sabath, and Ramah, and Sabtachap, and the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan, and Cush begat Nimrod. All right. And he began to be a mighty one in the earth. He is not the son of a giant. This is the same language used to describe the sons that were born when the sons of God saw the daughters of men, Genesis chapter 6, verse 1. This man is not a giant relative to the people of his day. Everyone there was larger at this point in time. And people have become smaller as you've gone forward. If you visit Korea today, you look at North and South Korea, because of the dietary nutrition that is available in one area and not in the other, people are smaller, people are thinner. And if that goes on long enough, that will encode itself into their genetics, and it'll take time to come back from. That's just the way it is with human beings. It's not evolution, but there is a such thing as selective breeding. Dark-skinned people breed with dark-skinned people, you get dark-skinned people. If among those dark-skinned people, lighter-skinned people begin to marry and to wed and to have children, those children are going to get progressively lighter as well, occasionally having a child that is darker. That's just basic DNA in humanity. It really doesn't mean a whole lot of anything, because it's not the color of a man's skin, but the content of his character, as has been said before. That really matters. All right, just so you know. And now I've lost my place. Raw and uncut. Okay, oh yes, our friend Nimrod. And Cush begat Nimrod, which is the another type of the Antichrist. He began to be a mighty one in the earth, and he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That language is a little bit misleading. It's talking not really so much about his ability to hunt animals as military prowess and political prowess, and his ability to gather and to coalesce people together to get them to do things to fulfill his will, which is exactly what he did. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Echad, and Elnah, and in the land of Shinar, which is basically Babylon today, Iraq. Out of the land went forth Asher and builded Nineveh, which is Assyria, and the city of Reboth and Calah and Risen, between Nineveh and Calah, and the same is a great city. And Mizraim begat Ludum and Anam and Libin and Naphathim and Natharusim and Calasim, of whom came Philistim and Caphathim. All right, I am going to for the sake of time. It gives you all these genealogies, and genealogies are important because they give us a record of time. But I'm terrible at pronouncing these things. We're going to jump to verse 32 of chapter 10. Verse 32 of chapter 10, raw and uncut. These are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations in their nations, and these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. Okay, that division has not yet happened. It's about to be. We'll see where it does. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. Now, that obviously contradicts what we read in chapter 10, the division of languages and nations. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. So their population's moving out. Not necessarily everybody takes off on a mass migration. And they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly, that they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. Slime is basically pitch, which would be in tar pits, okay? And when it hardens, you can use it. The only problem is it's highly flammable. And they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly, that they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered upon the face of the whole earth. So they saying is actually Nimrod saying. These are his ideas. This is his government. This is his organization. And the idea is, if God ever brings a flood, because we don't trust him, we'll run into the high tower, into the heavens, and I suppose oppose God and stop him from doing what he's going to do. It's rather childish to think so, because God is not a man, nor is he flesh and bone. You're not going to find him and locate him and accost him and stop him from doing anything. But it's a rallying point. It's a rallying point. It's something to gather men together for a common cause. Not a good cause, but a common cause that people would unite in. All right, and you have to ask yourself, you have to think more about these things than what's written on the page. They say, from the information that I have seen, that mud brick will allow you to build a tower at least half of a mile high. Half a mile high out of mud brick, okay? How many people does it take to build that? How many people does it take to make the brick, to gather the straw, the mud, to gather the pitch, to fire that, to move those things, to gather them up after they've been fired, to collect them, to bring them to staging areas? How many people does it take to feed those people? This was not just some event that happened in some backwater someplace. This is a well-organized, for all intents and purpose, global, or what would become, and it's in multinational effort, multinational failure, because God got involved in it. But it wasn't any small enterprise, okay? And neither is what's going on in the world today. All right. Satan has simply found that it's better to build buildings out of ideas than it is brick. All right. And they said, go to, let us, verse 4, build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. So mountains and rivers and oceans serve as borders to slow down the progress of man's sin. And so does language. And we have overcome that in this age. The number one spoken language in the world today is English, which is kind of scary, being that I'm an English speaker. All right, verse 7, go to, let us go down there and confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city, because they could no longer communicate. They no longer had sufficient numbers to do this. People that could understand each other began to gather together. They were probably I shouldn't do that. Excuse me. They were probably genealogically related anyway, and he just took segments out. That would have been the easiest thing to do. I can't prove that, but sometimes you just have to apply logic. You stop it at a certain line, and everybody beyond that in the genetic sequence speaks something else. All right, that's just an example of what could have happened. I'm not saying that's it. Verse 8, so the Lord scattered them from thence from upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. And therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. Let me see what I want to do. There's another list of genealogies here, but let's back up. So all these nations are now divided. They've all had the example of how to gather people, how to put together a political system of some kind, how to manage it, how to manage resources. And they took that information with them and spread again abroad across the earth as they had done before the flood. But now there is no commonality of language. And we start getting into archaeology and the ruins left behind by many cultures. That stuff's really interesting. We're not going to talk about that today. It's just my pet hobby, I suppose. All right, verse 10. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begat. That's what I wanted to go to. We're not going to get into it at this point in time, but I talked about Babel not being a small enterprise. This is the real beginning of geopolitical, religious, economic systems. This is the beginning of Babylon the Great. The Babylon the Great that still exists in the world today, that still rules the world today, called by 1,000 different names, and that will be in place to make war against Messiah when he comes, that will be destroyed in total, along with the head, the beast, the icon of Hasatan, Satan himself. This is where all modern religion comes from, the quadrilateral dividing of the year, the celebration of the vernal and autumnal equinoxes, Easter, and basically the autumn season, as well as the, what's the word I'm looking for, December 20th, so is the longest day of the year, the shortest day of the year. It'll come to me when I turn the camera off, which gives you Christmas, and then several different summer celebrations throughout the world. All four of those points of the calendar started to be used at this point in time. We'll talk about Babylon and Babylon's religion. And that religion, the reason you talk about that is because that religion has been retranslated, remarketed, repackaged, resold to every generation of every people in every nation upon this earth throughout time. And if you look at those religions, you're going to find out they all sync up in several different ways. That's because they are the same religion. They're the religion that started here, that started with Nimrod, with his wife Semiramis, and that was the foundation of it. All right. Verse 10, these are the generations of Shem. Ham was 100 years old, and he begat Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begat Arphaxad 500 years. He begat sons and daughters. And Arphaxad lived 530 years and begat Salah. And this is another genealogy. Verse 14, and Sarah lived 30 years and begat Eber. And Salah lived after he begat Eber 403 years. And begat sons and daughters. I should be taking more time with this because it's more important, but I really struggle with these names. And Eber lived 40 and 30 years and begat Peleg. And he is mentioned later on as being born at the time of the division of the earth. Okay, that's why you bring that verse out. Peleg. And Eber lived after he begat Peleg 430 years and begat sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years and begat Reuel. And Peleg lived after he begat Reuel 209 years and begat sons and daughters. So what we're doing here is walking down the genealogy from Adam until the next major character that we come to. This has been a continual bloodline from Adam on down. And Reuel lived 230 years and begat Serug. And Reuel lived after he begat Serug 207 years and begat sons and daughters. And Serug lived 30 years and begat Nahor. And I would encourage you to learn to pronounce these names properly. I am butchering them. And Serug lived after he begat Nahor 200 years and begat sons and daughters. And Nahor lived 9 and 20 years after he begat Terah, which is this, there's a major character. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years and begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abram. All right, Avram in the Hebrew, the next major character on the scene. All right. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Avram, Nahor, and Haran begat Lot. And Haran dies before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur the Chaldees, which Ur the Chaldees, you're talking about Assyria. These are Assyrians. These are the ancestors of some of the most brutal people who ever walked the face of the earth. And godless. Well, wrong God. And Abraham and Nahor took them wives, and Abram's wife's name was Sarah, or Sarah we say in the English, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, and the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarah was barren, and she had no child. You have got to understand, this is not America. This is not the United States. This is not a Western civilization. In this civilization, you inherited what your father gave to you, and it was your job to protect it, to expand it, and to pass it on. And if you were a woman, the only way well, not the only way, but the chief way you could contribute to that was by bearing children, especially sons, to your husband. In fact, that was Social Security for women. You have enough sons so that no matter what happens, a sufficient number of them live to take care of you in your old age. That sounds harsh and foreign to everything we know, but in reality, that is life. That's the way it was. That's the way it has been. The system that we have now is a complete artificial construct. It really is. And Terah took Abram his son and Lot, the sons of Haran his sons, and Sarah his daughter-in-law, and sons of Abram, and they went forth with them from Ur the Chaldees into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And these are the days of Terah, were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. And we're going to leave that right there. So you have the genealogy coming down from Adam all the way through to Noah, the sons of Noah, to Abram, who's now coming on the scene and is the next major character in this. We're not going to go any further than this because I don't want to rush through it and try to compact it all in here. But that's where we are. I'll get this taken care of and we'll do some more. Look at the world around you. We are not going back to what we once had as a people in this country. I don't believe so. And I'm not claiming to be anybody to have secret knowledge. I know what this book says, and I know it's proved to be true throughout history and generations. The prophet always, in the Bible writer, always beats the story to the page every time, without fail. We are not going back in this country to anything that anybody would call normal. Some people are going to hate what's coming. Other people are going to love it for a while until they realize what they've actually got themselves into and everybody else into. But you've got to be prepared, for what's coming. I would encourage you, pick up this book and read it. And I'm going to continue to post these videos and try and help somebody with something. But I pray for you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, in the name of Jesus, the Messiah, that your mind would be touched, that your spirit would be touched, that your understanding would be open, and that you would let these things sink down into you and take purchase and become part of what you are. Because this is the light in the darkness. And if it is extinguished in you, you have no guide. You have no way out. And you cannot count on anyone else. People fail. And God separates you from people. God puts you in a place by yourself to make sure you've dug this out for yourself. You know, this is not a tandem bicycle. You've got to ride it, and you've got to pedal it, and you've got to provide the momentum. He'll make sure you're successful if you make the attempt. But you can't ride on someone else's coattails. All right, until next time, I thank you.